Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Lose by 4% of the vote in a general election and you find yourself in strong opposition with a fighting chance of halting legislation and embarrassing the government. Win 48% of the vote in a referendum and you find yourself with absolutely nothing. Politically, your position is in many ways no stronger than if you'd won 0%. With all the Conservative leadership candidates now fully committed to Brexit and the winner, of course, guaranteed to govern, what will opposition even look like? And who will speak for the 48%? Some suggest we're approaching a fundamental redrawing of traditional party politics, but few are prepared to predict what it might look like. Joining me now to survey the scene are the journalist and broadcaster Paul Mason, the Times columnist Phil Collins and the former advisor to Nick Clegg, Polly Mackenzie. We'll get on to the highfalutin stuff imminently, but I'd like to begin by asking you all a very simple question. Who's in the biggest mess at the moment, the Conservatives or the Labour Party? And Polly, I'll start with you.
Probably the Labour Party, because the Conservatives at least have a process which is going to get them to a leader that they will broadly all be happy with, even if the country has to like it or lump it. Whereas the Labour Party, frankly, this could go on for months or even years.
Well, the Conservative Party's mess is more important because they're visiting on the rest of us. I mean, they're visiting on the country. So their mess is more important in that sense. But the bigger mess, if it weren't for that obviously important fact, is the Labour Party, which is facing the prospect it might not even exist quite soon.
An existential threat to the Labour Party, Paul Mason.
Yes, well, I noticed that your political editor, comprehensive though he was on the unnamed sources inside Westminster, omitted to report that there have been tens of thousands of people on the streets here in Manchester, in Cardiff and Birmingham just tonight, supporting Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Labour is in a mess. And I think what you've seen so far is the equivalent of the kind of harker before the rugby match. If the actual rugby match kicks off, it's going to get very brutal. And I think what we all need to do on all sides of this debate, I'm a Labour member, I voted Remain, is to try and find a way to de-escalate it. Because this generation of people who've signed up to depose Jeremy Corbyn, these young centre-left MPs, have no idea what an actual struggle inside the Labour movement looks like. Those of us who saw the miners' strike, and have seen what people are getting ready for right now, fear that it won't disappear. It may, however, seriously split.
Who speaks for you at the moment politically as a Corbyn-friendly Remainer?
Well, Jeremy Corbyn. I think he's speaking, but of course we, the wider Labour family, have to find some way of de-escalating this and of course focusing on the policies. The fact is, Corbyn and MacDonald have scored a fantastic success this week. Not one you would want to score, but they've knocked Osborne away from his fiscal rule. We were calling for him to do that, he's dropped it. But now we have to come up with a new fiscal policy for Britain. I would be arguing for a fiscal stimulus, tax cuts for businesses to attract investment now, investment tax spending to boost investment. All of that needs to happen. But of course, it's going to cannon straight into the Brexit negotiations. We need both parties actually to be on the ball and thinking in a centrist and national interested way.
OK, Paul. Philip Collins, the credit for the fiscal retreat of George Osborne being handed there to Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. I'll let you respond to that in a moment. I'm interested also in the notion of Jeremy Corbyn speaking for Labour Remainers while Labour Remainers in the main blame him for the Brexit.
Yeah, which I think is a bit harsh. Actually, I think there's a lot more in the vote to leave the European Union than could have been solved by Jeremy Corbyn. So I don't think it helps to blame him. He was a pretty lukewarm advocate for it, but that's because he's not very good. It's not because he had a particular bad day, it's that he was as good as he can be, which is not very good at all. I think it's, as scientists say of a bad theory, that it's not even wrong. And it's not even wrong to suggest that Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell are to gain the credit for George Osborne changing his rule. He's changed the rule because the country's had a massive economic shock and we're going to come out of the European Union. Now, it's perfectly reasonable in politics to try and claim your opponent's shift, so I've no objection to them attempting to do so, but it's not credible to think that that's the reason it's happened.
Polly, are we looking at something rather more fundamental than the usual local difficulties, infighting and squabbles that typify your world?
I think something has to change because, as you said in your intro, there's nobody who really represents the 48%, the people who voted for Remain. And we don't even have a mandate for a government to negotiate our Brexit. As we were hearing earlier, we don't know what kind of Brexit we want, a sort of economically sensible EEA type strategy, or full, complete distance, and we just cut ourselves off and float in the middle Atlantic. And actually, unless there's some sort of election or some sort of realignment of politics, nobody has a mandate to make that decision.
Well, what would that realignment look like?
At the moment, God only knows. I mean, there is this growth in the Liberal Democrats, but with only 8 MPs, it's hard to see Tim Farron.
Tim Farron has
leading.
committed to a campaign, a manifesto that would involve doing everything possible to get back into the European Union.
Yeah, absolutely. And and so I feel very strongly represented by that. But they only have 8 MPs, and it's very hard to see that as being enough to build a new centre party.
It's possible that a break could come if Jeremy Corbyn digs in and then he's challenged and he wins again, and then the 172 Labour MPs in Parliament who have declared no confidence in him declare themselves a new party. That's not beyond the bounds of possibility at the moment. So we're closer perhaps than we've ever been before. I'm not sure it's a great solution or a great outcome, but that's entirely feasible at the moment.
Have we found something on which you can all agree, Paul Mason, that a fundamental realignment might well be on the horizon?
I think centrist politics, which wants to rejoin the European Union after this, overtly and proactively rejoin the European Union, would have to be a new party, because neither the Conservatives nor the Labour are going to do that as parties. But I do think there's a big problem for centrist politics, full stop. Centrist politicians from both sides are going to be called upon to act in the national interest in a way that they're not really used to defining. What should happen right now is we should slash business tax and we should boost business investment. The moment we do that, the people we're across the table from in the Brexit negotiations, the French and the Germans, are going to say, hold on a minute, this is unfair competition, Mr. whoever it is they're talking to. Please withdraw your tax cut in order to get back into the EEA. I favour going into the EEA. I also favour doing rapid tax cuts to boost growth and business investment. So we need a political class that knows how to do this kind of thing. They're not used to it because they're used to 40-odd years of multilateralism that they triggered the breakdown of.
Mr. or of course, it may well be a Mrs.
It could be Ms. I'm very sorry.
That's quite all right that they'll be negotiating with.
Most importantly, there isn't anybody to make those decisions. We've had this unbelievably hectic week in British politics, but actually we have no more clarity 1 week on about what on earth we're going to do next. And it's that complete vacuum which, whatever negotiating strategy we adopt, the truth is we need to start doing something, because all across Europe, and especially in Brussels, people are planning for how to negotiate this in their interests and not in ours, whereas we are just, we've got a Cabinet Office team of 3 people thinking about this.
And of course, a referendum doesn't give you a mandate for anything in particular. It's a mandate to leave the European Union.
It's a binary question.
On no
how big a part do you think that'll play in the Conservative candidate battle? Do you think they'll be putting forward rival visions of Brexit, or do you think they'll just be trying to sort of woo the party faithful in the usual
It's very
ways?
interesting that the overwhelming favourite appears to be someone who voted Remain.
Yes.
It was on the Remain side, Theresa May. I mean, I guess nobody would have predicted that this time last week, but then I suppose nobody would have predicted anything that's happened this time last week. But it does appear that she's moving ahead, and yet, as we said in the introduction, everybody there is committed to exit. I don't think any of them really have the first idea what it means yet. So I think if they do put forward any plans, they'll be very meagre plans indeed.
Paul Mason?
Hello?
I beg your pardon, Paul. I was expecting you to respond to what Philip Collins said.
I'm sorry, yes. Yeah, look, what's amazing at the moment is the fact that we've got all the political class cannot utter the words that we've uttered on this discussion, EEA, European Economic Area. It is the obvious solution to apply for the European Economic Area, to design a variation on free movement, ask for the emergency break you can get, and then start from there. You may not get it, and you may have to fall back to a complete break with the EU, but it's logical to go for that. What frustrates me on all sides of Parliament is that people are not prepared to do that, and that's because the party machinery is fractured.
Paul Mason, Philip Collins, Polly Mackenzie, many thanks indeed.